Hi folks, Andy here again, and time for the last one of these I'm going to do today. Number 27 on my Richard Layman ranking is probably the last book on this list now that I think is a bit underwhelming in general. None of these last few have been bad, but this is the last underwhelming one, and it's come out tonight from 1999. This is a book that, generally speaking, doesn't seem to get talked about that much by layman fans. It doesn't seem to be one that the majority of people have read. It's one that you can't get a mass market paperback copy of in the UK. I'm not sure why. Again, just something they happily released paperback copies of No Sanctuary or After Midnight. And quite say and Island's been out in a publication for God knows how long, like 30 odd years. But books like this you can't get copies of unless you buy the second-hand versions. Which is a bit weird. This this is a very late layman one. Like I said, it came out in '99, and a lot of people who do talk about this put this really high up on the list of books. I've seen this in people's top tens, which is, it just goes to show it's all subjective, really. You know, there's no right or wrong answer for that. I understand why some people like this one, especially considering some of the more sort of, some of the bad books that Layman was putting out at this time. To come out with a book that's quite charged and fast paced like this is definitely a better plotted, written, and paced book than a lot of the books that came out before this. But I'm just not a massive fan of it. Come Out Tonight stars has this. I think she's a teacher, and it starts off with her and her boyfriend. It's in the heat of the summer, and they're basically trying to have sex. But surprisingly enough, they want to have safe sex, and he goes out to buy condoms. Never comes back. She goes looking for him, and she becomes entangled with the villain of the piece. It's very obvious very early on who he is. His name's Toby. He is one of Layman's better villains in that he's very sly, he's young, he's a teenager, he's manipulative, he's very chilling in that he doesn't seem to care at all as to whether he's observed or whether he gets caught. He has no interest in his own life. He's simply interested in doing awful stuff. Yeah, that's what makes him quite chilling. He's quite a good villain. He basically, for one reason or another, ends up kidnapping her and forcing her to do terrible things before trying to turn his attention to her younger sister. It's fast paced. It's certainly well plotted and structured. This book is definitely, an action packed book, and it has, unusually for Layman, a decent sense of world building and scene setting. Layman generally focuses on action, but he doesn't do characterization. He certainly doesn't do scene setting here. But this has got a depiction of a very hot city that's very muggy and uncomfortable, and it does really well in terms of how it describes sort of like the action and the heat and the humidity of where it's set, as well as the pace. The first half of this book, if this book was a shorter novel, it's not a big book. If this book was a 200-page novel, the first half of this would probably rank a lot higher up on this list, because I actually think the first half of this is pretty good. Fast paced. You know that this guy's trying to hurt this girl and kill her and do awful things, and she's playing this mind game with him. And the thing is, despite the fact that he's a very clever, manipulative, sly guy, he's also got a massive ego. And by doing what he wants, and by sort of complimenting him and things, you can kind of delay him from doing awful stuff. He's quite sort of sadistic, but he's definitely got an ego. So that's kind of what happens throughout the first half. Things fall apart for me in the second half, which is why it's ranked as low as it is on this list. In that, when he starts to turn his attention to the sister, the main character's younger sister has a group of friends who are awful human beings. They're described as her mates, but when stuff starts going seriously wrong, these people turn on each other so quickly. One of the really weird things I've read with Layman's stories is that whenever you've got groups of friends, particularly friends that have known each other for a long time, in Layman's world, they tend to all really dislike each other, but they're just hanging around with each other for the sake of hanging around with each other. Because whenever something happens, a lot of them bicker and argue and pick on each other, and you think these people in real life would never hang around together. But especially in this book, they're literally willing to murder they're literally willing to murder each other within minutes of being told to by this maniac, rather than group together to try and fight him off. And you find out that they've all got sort of like deep-seated hatred for each other. And I'm like, why are they hanging out together? They don't like each other at all. Really off-putting. There's it's only a minor spoiler, but the main female, Toby thinks she's dead, and she isn't. And she's rescued by these two young teenagers who we are meant to think are kind, caring heroes. That they do want to help her, and they do want to, fight off Toby and go and rescue her sister and all that. But they also want to sort of just keep her prisoner as some sort of slave. And she is aware of that, and she's outwitting them. But it's like the amount of lies these guys tell, and the way they're trying to sort of just keep her sort of semi-nude and take leery views of her and stuff. She's kind of like thinks it's okay, it's understandable. She's a half-naked woman, and they want to look at her. But it's the way they're depicted is just properly. I'm losing the ability to talk. Properly lechy, really sort of vulgar, unlikable guys that are doing everything they can to keep her sort of prisoner within their house, and sort of like look up her skirt and all sorts. They're just really sort of lechy. And yes, they do kind of save the day, and they want to help her, but it's kind of overridden by their sense of wanting to just lech over this girl. It's all a bit weird, and like we're meant to like these characters and think that they're likable, nice heroes, but they're not. They're just horrible people. The ending of the book as well, it doesn't give us a payoff. We know what is planned for Toad, but you want a decent payoff with this, and you just don't get one. The ending is just very sort of rapid. The best scenes happen sort of effectively off screen, as it were, and it was all a bit disappointing in that sense. I think it starts off really well. It's a book that has a great premise, starts off well, it's well written, it's fast paced, it's well plotted, but then the second half just sort of falls apart and ends up a bit unsatisfactory and a bit of a disappointment, really. And it's not a bad book, it's okay, but I wanted to like it a lot more than I did, which is why it's at number 27 on my list.